What I love about these unsung heroes is that it's the actions that speak, it's not the voice that speaks.
Hi, welcome to the Sourcing Hero podcast. I'm your host, Catherine, and I'm so excited today for our guest. I've got Aman Mann from Procurify. He's the CEO and founder. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you for having me on the show as well. Very excited to be here.
All right, so you are here today because I want to know your perspective on the Sourcing Hero. And as a procure to pay software company, I would imagine that you have a very interesting point of view for sourcing heroes, since a lot of the companies and organizations that you're helping are working in back offices, they're in finance, and a lot of the tactical work that they're doing every day probably adds up to a lot more than most people know. So tell me, in your mind, what is a sourcing hero?
Yes, thank you for the question. First of all, I love the phrase sourcing hero, and I love the word hero because a hero, by definition, is the actions for the greater good of others. Creating a value for others is such an important aspect, I think, to the individual that is inside these organizations. And we consider back office, as we were discussing earlier, back office is, considered like the paper pushers or the control, these individuals that typically don't get the loud or the kind of speak in rooms in a louder way or in a stronger way to show their position. And so what I love about the sourcing hero and where we come from that is they have the ability to make such a strategic difference to the organization in the way they think because they can see things that are moving differently inside the organizations than from other vantage points. Their vantage point has so many different accumulated data sets that actually gives them the ability to make a real difference and move the organization forward. And what I love about these unsung heroes is that it's the actions that speak, it's not the voice that speaks. So allowing them to do the actions they do in the background that keeps the place moving. But then if you add the voice and the data and give them the ability to speak, I think they have an immense value that is very strategic. And as technology starts to adapt some of these back office tasks or processes, you then allow these individuals to even step up further in the strategic thinking and the mindsets they have that can extend the value of the job they're doing.
I love that. And that rings true with the statement that you told me earlier about empowering organizations to fulfill their own company's mission. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean that's the truth behind what Procurify stands for. Is we really ourselves want to build a product so that it's in the background for these individuals that have the ability to make such a difference again for the organization, and by empowering them, empowering the business to be successful, empowering the individual to make the business successful is such a critical thing. And again, that ties into being the heroes, right? It's not about getting the limelight. It's actually about doing being fulfilled in your day that you're making a difference. And the empowerment is such a strong thing the organization can do. Empower the individuals to make better decisions and be strategic voices. The individuals then empower the rest of the organization to move and achieve their own goals for successes that all tie back to one thing, that the organization exists for a reason. Every organization has its own purpose or has its own mission or vision. And these individuals are here to be empowered or should be empowered to help that organization achieve that success.
Well, we love the message of empowering procurement and the heart that you guys are putting behind the product, and the results, I'm sure, are amazing. Can you tell me about some of these heroes, these unsung heroes, any of the stories that you guys hear, successes using Procurify?
Yeah, I mean, I love it when you'll hear some of these individuals who have been able to save the organization, in certain areas of their spending so that they can make sure they have the right budgets to achieve other projects in innovation and R&D inside the organization, or you have individuals that now are building themselves up with a louder voice and take a chance on technology, so they put themselves inside this organization with a risk that sees success for them, and then they grow inside the organization, and then they actually become influencers in this space and are able to spread the message of how organizations can do better and change. And one thing that I was sharing earlier was that for us, we're just a background to the real heroes. We just want to be the process and system that organizations use or individuals use, and again, to empower them to be that hero. And by doing that, I am so happy when the organization then finally sees that individual who's making that difference, who's bringing in these types of needed processes or systems, or and can basically align the organization under this umbrella of procurement or spend, and basically see the difference they make finally in real time. Because these individuals are typically working in their own space, doing their own thing. But once you bring some technology to that layer, you get them all connected together, and there's real time visibility. And then you see this individual elevated because of that. And that's our hope, to continue to elevate these individuals in the background.
I agree. And part of our company's mission serves the same purpose, to empower procurement to grow their business, improve the bottom line, but also grow themselves. And it's incredible to have a brand message that allows the individual to shine, that your software is really just a tool that they get to use to build that confidence and their voice. Because to be honest, I think that traditionally a lot of procurement professionals don't tend to have the loudest voice in the room, or feel like they want to stand up and be the one to make the changes. And so, my next question to you is, what do you think procurement can be doing differently to move forward and start that change of empowerment, not just with the technology that they use, but outside of that? What can procurement do to rise up?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And I think the reality is, everyone always wants a seat at the table. And I think that, procurement space has such a value add in being a seat at that table. And I think the important factor for individuals to really think about is the truth of the matter: technology. Where is technology going? If I can relate to technology and bring that into the organization, it gives me the space to think about more strategic thinking. And honestly, strategic thinking and partnering with organizations that can elevate that thinking, that also align with the new way of doing procurement or business. Organizations like yours, they have the ability to are thinking from a fresh perspective. And I think that phrase, fresh perspective, is something that can catapult and can catalyze the events that are happening in these organizations in such a stronger way, because procurement and spending is such a, like, procurement is a very unsexy thing, and that's the truth. You really want to bring it to the forefront, but I think that's even changing our language and terminology, and this is why we are calling it spend culture and spend management inside organizations, and how you relate to procurement and how you relate to sourcing, and how do you bring that all together. And I think these individuals that are moving into this space, or who are in this space, should look around at the way the world is changing, and we should be thinking about how to leverage that in our day-to-day lives, right? Because everybody, again, at the end of the day, wants to feel fulfilled with a purpose, that they're doing something of value, that they're creating value for others, and they know where they're going in these organizations that they're helping build. And I think it's really important that, bringing that fresh perspective, they can start to look at how to help the organization be successful with their strengths, with technology, with new way of thinking, and bringing it all together.
The term spend culture has been coined by Procurify, and I've noticed all of your employees using that term, and it's on your website. Tell me, how has spend culture evolved through the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's an interesting thing. I never planned for Procurify to exist in a post 2008 scenario, that would come back to us in that same realm. Financial crisis showed you that organizations were really reactive in their thinking of spend, and the idea of, how to manage their supply chain, and all of that stuff that you just don't pay attention to, because it's usually somewhere in the background, right? And the era of COVID really shook up a lot of organizations and unfortunately caused a lot of the same aspects that we saw in 2008, where reactive decisions caused a lot of unfortunate events. Except this time, what I found is that people were more prepared to react to it. And, like, okay, there's technology. Okay, let's listen to these individuals quickly. Like, people were willing to adapt in a much quicker way than what I saw in 2008. So that was really exciting. And I think spend culture itself is just an evolving mechanism for organizations to, again, think about these different principles of procurement and spend management and P2P, all these things that most people don't pay attention to inside the organization. And, I really believe that an organization is about the people, and the people want to do the best for the organization, but the systems, the processes, and the ability for them to have space to think in that way is necessary for that to be a truth.
So you mentioned the 2008 financial crisis. And in our earlier conversation, you had said that that kind of spurred the inspiration for Procurify. Tell me more about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was unfortunately, I had a lot of people around me that were affected by the 2008 crisis, whether losing their jobs or losing, their homes and shutting down their businesses. And that was a very unfortunate state. And it became very clear that money and spending and how people spent it was a very reactive decision. And you can see the control money does have on the unfortunate state of things. And we wanted to build Procurify in a way that would empower people to think about things proactively. And what I'm proud of is that you'll never hear about some of the things that might be useful from a product like ours, where it's like somebody didn't lose their job, a project didn't get shut down, a business didn't shut down. And not saying we're here to solve all the problems, but we want to help organizations be very proactive so they have the best chance to succeed. And unlocking the potential of their own team members inside their organization, procurement, and these individuals that care, if we can help unlock that so they have space to think, then we give them the best shot to help that organization be successful, right? And to care about that organization in a way that gives them space to actually do that. And that's really the amalgamation from 2008, what we saw, and that motivation to how do you stop that from happening? How do you help organizations to not end up in that space when something does happen in a very reactive way? And that's our mission. That's what we're driving towards as an organization, you know, make those heroes.
I love it. And, here we are in a similar situation, and there's a real tool out there and available that's probably more relevant now than ever for these sourcing heroes and procurement professionals to utilize. And I can't imagine right now the impact that it's having on smaller organizations that potentially could have been done. Maybe some are struggling, but like you said, because you're not solving every problem, but you're certainly bringing visibility to problems that could have been an issue.
Yes, I appreciate that. That's a great way to phrase that. It was very interesting to see the trends of spend inside these organizations because you could see how quickly they managed that decision to hold off on spending with using a product because it's not flowing through an ad hoc way. And then you could see how they were managing the supply chain of acquiring their goods and where they were trying to get it from, with the restrictions that were in place. And you could see this development and this process, but you could see it all happening through a centralized product, which was really cool that they were able to manage a lot of their communication and decision making within this platform so that they could all be in sync and proactive about what needs to get done next. That was very meaningful for us during this period of time. I think as an organization, we also have a lot to learn in the needs of our customers, and that's what we're excited to challenge ourselves with because these are sometimes very complex scenarios that they're dealing with, and we want to simplify that and make it as easy as possible for them to be able to capture all this data, capture the spend, make smarter decisions over time as they start to use the product. You want to simplify it for these individuals so that again that they have the space to really be strategic in their ways and thinking.
So you mentioned that Procurify and the procure to pay system allows your customers the ability to make decisions faster. And this pandemic, it seems like every day there was something new. The pace was moving so quickly. People were adapting so quickly. What have you learned from your customers using the product in this process of having to adapt and quickly adjust?
Yeah, that the world has changed. It really has. You see a lot more decentralized organizations now with the disbursement of team members that are all over the place. So managing spend in a physical realm and doing procurement and doing that for the organization in a physical spot. Now dispersing, not just having a few locations that are physical. Now every individual is a location, right? And every individual will have their own necessary needs. And the idea of remote and decentralized individuals, I think, is going to be a big, big change for organizations because it's one going to bring a very quick and is bringing a very quick light to ad hoc or outdated processes that organizations are running from. And then it's also going to bring into light, what are the necessary needs for organizations to adapt and move in the direction of the new age, right? And I think that's the idea of connecting through technology, connecting with new ways of thinking, new thought around these spaces and these industries that have been very traditional over time, right? Nothing has been really truly disruptive in these organizations, but I think with this COVID, I think it was a big effect on the way we think about supply chain, the way decentralized teams are going to be operating, and even what we spend our money on is going to change because it's just the world is adapted into a different way of living.
It has. And I think that the procurement industry and the sourcing industry itself has come to light for a lot of organizations that maybe weren't even in touch with their own procurement or their own purchasing methods. And it's incredible to see how quickly people are noticing these unsung sourcing heroes that are making a huge difference. And what I've been hearing from our team, our sourcing team, is now there are people asking about how we can centralize the spending, right? You mentioned decentralized spending because everybody's in a different location. What can we do to bring this to the center? How can we get that maverick spend under control? Because, right, if everybody's in a different location, they're not under the same roof. There might be 3 to 5 one-offs a day that weren't being
Yeah.
captured before, and now there's a tailspin management issue because everybody's budgets are getting reviewed 2 and 3 times more than they usually would, and they're seeing that there's an entire set of categories that nobody's paying attention to. All of these items are so important and they're coming into light. Tell me how Procurify, because we haven't talked about the software itself yet. Tell me how Procurify addresses some of these issues.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And, as much as I don't want to represent Procurify in a way that's, we're just, I believe that we're a product, but we're a mindset for organizations. This is why spend culture and the idea of how you manage your decisions makes such a difference. And for us, Procurify is really to come in and unlock the organizational change that's required to move and adapt to this new way of thinking and to bring in technology, not to enforce, but to empower these individuals because there's so many ideas of constraints. And I feel that policies inside organizations are, yes, there's a lot that are important, but I think if you can build technology or process and systems inside, you can reduce the idea of policy and build more trust because you have the right processes and systems in place. And I think for us, we really believe that it isn't about control. It isn't about restrictions. It's unlock these individuals to make quick, smart decisions and don't hold them accountable for bad processes and bad systems, right? If the process or system fails, and usually we blame the individual, right? It shouldn't be that way. It should be, do you have the right systems and processes in place to manage those budgets, to give them the right workflow to be using, to give them a product that's simple to consume, right? If it's cumbersome and difficult, you will always find people being smart about finding an easier way to do things, right? They don't want to use the frustrating way of doing things, and you shouldn't want them to be frustrated in their days. You should want them to find something that's simple to consume so they can quickly create their non-value added task list and value added task list, right? And we want to consume their non-value added task list. So we can be in the background of all their requests, their approvals, their purchasing, their invoice processing needs, like reconciliation time for these organizations to know proactively, are they spending their money in the right way, consolidating orders immediately so they can have understanding of like who are they buying from, why are they buying, when do they need to buy, and really making smarter decisions through that process. And again, trying to simplify it across the board, because this isn't simple. Money in its nature is complex. Money running inside organization is infinitely complex. And I'm sure as individuals living in our own lives, in our family and personal, we understand the complexity of money. The importance of it, the difficulty of it inside an organization, I think is magnified. This is all under one house and all different individuals. And so, how do you connect them all together, create organizational change, give them what they need when they need it, and create it very simplistically so that the organization has something that is successful for the organization to run, and the individuals have something that they can use and consume very quickly to achieve their.
So, is the simplicity the differentiator between you and perhaps other P2P systems?
That's a great question. I appreciate that. I would hope to say that simplicity is the differentiator, but I believe it's really also a mindset. Like we're a fundraised company in this space because we want to invest in innovation. We want to invest in the new technology for these organizations. We want to adapt for the organization so that they don't have to think about what's next in technology. We want to be that platform for them that's always adapting and changing. And again, we come from a place of compassion, and that is what we stand for as an organization. We want to be egoless in the way we think about building our company, and I hope these things translate to the type of product that these organizations will use. I want to say that the reason we're different is because I think the team we have is different. And that builds, I hope, the right value for our customers. And we will do whatever it takes to continue to drive as much value, because we want to be a company not built for profit and margins on revenue. We want to be a company built for value so we see success in our customers and in the users. That's what we want to invest the money into. We want to use it so it can be doing good for others.
Your passion is so tangible. And I think through your words and through the culture that you've driven with Procurify online and the people I've worked with at Procurify. And I'm sure people that are listening right now are curious as well. So, where can they find you online?
Well, procurify.com is a nice, simple way to find
Mm-hmm.
us. I'm on LinkedIn, so anybody who wants to connect can reach out. Also, Aman at procurify.com. I would love to say that I manage my days wisely, but my email can sometimes get caught in that world we live in today, especially being remote. So working that well. And Catherine, I have to give you a shout out. From our conversation earlier, the way you want to disrupt the space as well in a positive way and use heart inside it and bring that hero life out of individuals and really shine a light on this space. And I really appreciate your organization's position to make that a real thing. And I'm very excited to see, again, more individuals that are passionate like yourself and your organization as well, making a difference and doing it differently.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I am excited. If anyone hasn't noticed, Procurify and Una do partner up for content and promotions on LinkedIn. And you'll be seeing us in some Procurify online events coming up. Stay tuned on LinkedIn for that. And Aman, I have to thank you again. This has been such an incredible conversation. I love your insight. And like I said, your passion is through the roof. I think that this is just the beginning. I think our brands are going to do a lot together.
Very exciting.
You have our full support.
Thank you very much, Catherine. That means a lot. I'm very grateful for the time we've shared today. And you're a wonderful host, I have to say. You've made this very easy for me.
Well, thanks. And I'm hoping maybe, in a few months, we can loop back around and do this again and talk about the next topic.
Okay, I love it.
I wish you continued success with Procurify.
Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate it very much, and likewise.
Thank you.